Hey everyone, Nathan Nerdarchy here from Nerdarchy, for Nerds by Nerds, and today we're doing a viewer request from William Colati about building a city from the ground up and what's in a city and kind of our strategies for constructing one.
The different kind, how you would go about building different kinds of cities.
Yeah, how do you build different kinds of cities?
And since we know that's Nathan Nerdarchy Dave here.
And I'm Nerdarchy Ted. So basically, Dave and I have discussed, strategies before on cities and towns and this and that. When you're building a campaign or your session, and we kind of view the same way. I'm not certain where you stand on it.
Well, I'll let you know.
I'm not one who's going to sit there and draw out a huge map with all street names and all the different places and exactly where they are. I'm just more about like, okay, what are the players going to need? They're going to need a place to sleep, so you're going to need some kind of inn. They're going to need some place to, get a drink and get a meal, so they're probably going to need a tavern. They're probably going to need some kind of smithy to make new weapons and armor. And they might want to require some kind of like general item shop or equipment shop and that kind of stuff, which might be linked to your blacksmith or not. And based on the size of your town, city, metropolis, you're going to want to have more options of these kind of things. The bigger the city, the more extra things that you're going to put in there. If you've got a major city, you're probably going to have several, churches with differentiating religions. You're probably going to have, like central buildings for the city officials and the like. You're going to have a number of noble houses in there, again, based on the size of the city. The bigger the city, the more wealthy people that are going to be there.
So piggybacking off of what you said, right? So, all right, village, town, city. 0 to 1, 1 to 2, and basically 2 to 5. Unique features you need, right? And you don't have to establish them all at once. In addition to, you need a couple inns, you need a couple choices for those places that they're going to do anyway.
Right.
And then you just throw in some interesting features which, if it's a port city, it just might be the fact that it's a port city could be a feature.
Right.
If there's something different about how the city's governed, that could be a feature.
Right.
Yeah. Anything. If there's a library that's renowned or something, or a mage's tower. These are all features that you can just build in as points of interest, and and it does a couple things. One is a DM, it'll inspire you, and two, it'll hopefully inspire your players as well for them to kind of come up with things to do. For me, I think the most important thing about coming up with your city, your towns, your villages is the mood. Is trying to convey a certain kind of mood to the players so that they kind of feel like they're in that place. All that other stuff doesn't really matter. It's really just flavor text, right?
Uh-huh.
So you don't have to have it all written down and statted out, and you can do it in a way that makes your players think that you went and built the whole city without them knowing about it. And I've done it the other way where I have written everything out. It's a lot of work and it's a pain in the ass, and it's kind of fun to do it. But if you don't have a lot of time, you just do it as you go. Grab some index cards and take notes. And as you build it little by little, every time they do something different, it just adds to it.
And one of the things you want to do is to not over prep. Is okay, we're gonna say you've got this smithy, call it whatever you want. It's run by this guy here. Give like 2 sentences about the guy or the smithy. And move on to the next
So a point
thing.
of interest. They're probably going to go to the blacksmith to have something repaired or something done.
Something fixed or something.
Or, hey, I want
made.
a new sword or a
Right.
dagger. I lost mine.
And it's like, oh, is it, is he the Griswold type? Well, what can I do for you? Or is it, something different? Is he human? Is he dwarven? Is he elven? All of those little nuances are going to be, important because, well, the players in the party might react differently to a dwarven blacksmith or an elven silversmith. It depends upon what the party dynamic is and how haughty or approachable that character is. And all in 2 sentences you can put all of that information in there.
And one of the reasons why you only want to do like 2 sentences because they may not interact with that character ever.
Right.
Or it could be the opposite. Like they keep going back to him over and over again, and you don't know why. It has nothing to do with the story, nothing to do with the plot. But for whatever reason, your players have decided they're going to go back and back, keep going back to that character, and keep talking to them. So every time that happens, maybe you take some notes.
Yeah,
you build them out little by little.
You put every time your players interact with a character, make some kind of notation as to what happened, why they interacted with him, and if you want, give some kind of like plus minus system to what your NPCs have. And the more they're interacting with a character, the more the players feel connected to that character, and therefore
you murder that character.
Well, you don't
This isn't a horror game.
You don't necessarily have to murder them, but you make them important to the story in some way, shape, or form. Either he's been kidnapped, or something has happened to his shop, something has happened to his family.
Yeah, his son or daughter.
So there's
Or the project he's about to finish can only be finished with the blood of an keg. You just never know.
So just interacting with that character leads into so many different possible plot hooks and stories with someone that they have chosen to become important, not you.
Yes, that's
really
the
good
key
point.
there. When the players start picking out those NPCs and making them important, it's, oh my god, it's so much easier. I remember like months ago we got a comment for somebody and they're like, I don't know what to do. I keep running this adventure, but my players, they won't stop talking to the NPCs. They keep going back. I'm like, dude, you're doing it right. It's cool. Let them. Your material will last so much longer.
Yeah.
And they're building those relationships and those bonds. That's going to create plot hooks down the road in the future. And not only that too, when something happens with those NPCs, your characters or not your characters, but your players, they're going to care.
Yes, absolutely.
Anytime we're still right as a DM, you're kind of like a storyteller. So when you tell a story, what do you want to do? You want to invoke emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So anything time that happens, you're doing a good job.
I'm on the other side of this. Not that's really good, but on city creation, I like to say, well, all right, if it's not a port city, because we kind of all know how port cities come about. People like stopping there. It gets bigger and bigger. It becomes a site of commerce because you can get to it from a river or a sea or an ocean. So it becomes a little hub for activity. Mm-hmm. So that's why port cities get bigger a lot of the times, and they don't get destroyed by a massive.
Well, and the other thing that, like, for instance, if you are building a port city, well, what sets it apart? Well, it's a port for one, but what else? Well, generally they tend to be exchanges for different cultures and a melting pot because it's easily accessible. So people come from different places, and you're more likely to have more different races and different cultures intermingling.
So it's a great starting point for an adventure because you can say, well, anybody under the sun could be at this port city.
Griffin Gaff is known as a central location. It's primarily a human city, but it's got elves and dwarves living in it. The dwarves are kind of under contract by the local dwarf clan. That dwarves serve as soldiers in their militia / army. The elves pretty much run the library, and magical research and the whole nine. So you've got three of the most common races all together. And if you want to go from the quote unquote human city to the elven city, or the human city to the dwarven city, it's only like a couple days travel.
And not only that, in that particular region, if you want dwarf goods or you want elf goods, they've probably first passed through Griffin Gaff. Mm-hmm. Griffin Gaff has secured the rights to sell these products and basically the trade route to and from, and that's why it is also kind of a more of a boom town or almost like the port city where people are traveling through and you end up with a good mix.
And on top of that, it is a port city. It might not be to the actual ocean, but it started as a fishing village, and it kind of has boomed from there.
Yeah, so one of my major cities, Azoria, which is on the interior, it's about 100 or so miles from the port city that I have in my location. It started as a mining town. So a mining town within a couple days' travel of a port is a good recipe for increased economy and increased population density from commerce.
Right.
So and that's kind of, it started to be to be able to trade with the interior from selling its goods and the things that it created. So it has craftsmen, it has raw materials leaving and coming in. It has a built-up economy, but that was hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So now it's more of a complex city where it started as, stone huts and mining town.
Right.
So I like to kind of go from the history of it towards where it is now, rather than to say, oh, I want this, I want that in it, and then kind of like work backwards. I mean, you can go both ways, but I tend to like to say, like, well, why would somebody put their house there? That's kind of how cities a lot of times begin, is like a fishing village or a mining town, or the last outpost before an expanse that eventually gets tamed. So when it's tamed, well, that outpost, 100-year-old outpost, has become a growing area for people to be at, because it's into this rich area that has a lot of resources and other things.
Well, like even that being said, like, you can do that, and you can still do that in like 10 sentences or less. So
yeah, you can.
So it works. Like, you can do the framework of, and that's what we're talking about. Anytime you're doing any important location in your world, in your campaign, you really can just do it with a framework or a structure, where 10 sentences, 5 sentences, even 3 sentences I've done. You basically just say, what players need to know about it and what you need to know about it. Mm-hmm. And you know what you need to know about it? Whatever the players need to know about it, pretty much. And then you can add, you fill in the blanks as you go, and certain like NPC characters are going to come into your campaign, and they're not going to be important when you first introduce them, yet because of how things unfold, all of a sudden they become your prime NPCs. Mm-hmm. And ones that you thought were going to be prime NPCs are now secondary NPCs. Like, there's an ebb and flow, to building an organic campaign, that it can come along really easy if you let it. And usually, the biggest thing in that is just getting the hell out of the way and letting it happen, and not overdoing it. When you overcommit to any one idea in your campaign, you're going to try and cram it down your player's throat, whether they want it or not, just because you spent time working on it.
Right.
Yeah, it's basically, if you spend time and energy, it becomes important to you, and then your players are like, I want to talk to this blacksmith that you just randomly rolled up and stuck somewhere.
Yeah, so honestly, my opinion is, as the DM, nothing should be important to you. Except for maybe except for your player characters. And then, as they make things important to them, then you make it important. Yeah, so you have this growing scale, escalating scale of interest based on whatever they want to do.
Mm-hmm. Right. So back to the the actual official question of making the city. You've got its components. The bigger the city, the more you need. Don't over prep, and kind of allow the players to kind of feed you what out of that city they need. Right.
It's almost like a fog of war. You don't know what's there until the players explore it, and you're like, oh yeah, 3 streets down, there's a blacksmith. Mm-hmm. Been there the whole time.
Like you've done, you can just make up a bunch of random NPCs and pull them out as you need them. Mm-hmm. As they explore and do things, and as they ask, they're like, I need to know where the local pottery barn is. Oh yeah, sure, it's right over here. Pull out one of your NPCs.
I didn't have a mayor for my town, and one of the NPCs that's the foster mother to the character said, "Oh, we're going to go see the mayor." And you're like,
hey, Nate's like, what the hell are you doing? We don't have a map.
No, not that wasn't my problem. What she said before I said anything about the mayor, the character said, the player said, well, isn't that the guy that's like a total drunk and a jerk? I was like, and then I'm like, I just went with it. I was like, oh no, not that guy. We're gonna go to the mayor's assistant, the person that really goes and runs everything. I just made that up in response to the one thing she said. I just immediately made it up. So it's like,
did you write that down?
Because I didn't have a mayor.
Did you write down about the mayor's now a drunk and a jerk?
Yeah. And he's a total ass. Awesome. He's a total ass to everybody, but he has money and a lineage, and that's why he's the mayor of the town. Yeah. But he doesn't even really do anything. Or the mayor's assistant runs everything. Yeah, he did. I didn't even name him. You're right. She didn't say his name. I didn't say his name. We just don't talk about the mayor.
That is the most awesome thing when you've got an NPC that gets built off of a player statement and you run with it, and it's important that they don't even have a name because it's that not important.
The mayor, yeah, and even the mayor's assistant, Liliana, who I just made up on the spot, but I picked her out of I didn't have her name, but I picked her out of my stack. I'm like, this looks like a mayor assistant that's competent.
Well,
I'll use her.
So because now you're going to fulfill an expectation that the player actually made themselves.
Yeah.
Off of something they either misheard or just decided to say.
She just totally bullshit. It was totally out of nowhere.
That's all.
And I actually, you guys haven't had the privilege, but I actually know that because I watched the gameplay video, but it's not up yet.
Yeah.
Or I listened to it because you said there's a problem with the syncing.
Yeah, it doesn't sync right. I'm still trying to get it
I don't
up.
watch the videos. I just listen to them anyway. And it's funny. Naked half-orc chick.
Very inventive group of cast of characters and their
can't wait.
and their PC characters. So with that framework, you can have that fog of war effect. But I really like there's certain things that I like to get down, like demographic wise, population of the city. Well, in my mind, is it a large city? Is it a small city? Rich, poor, and merchant class. Where do they reside?
Okay.
There's usually always squalor somewhere. Where is it in this city?
Right.
I like to kind of figure that kind of stuff out because that way I can start kind of setting up in my mind, well, where's the center of town? Does the center of town look kind of junky, or is it like the main attraction? Like people go there, that's where the rich people live.
Right.
Or are they walled off in some other sector, like higher up on the mountain kind of thing? If it's
He'd be really disappointed with Griffin Gap. Things are probably constantly moving around.
I don't think things have moved too much unless you're shifting things from what I've said. But
it's the grid system mentality of a city to me. Even when it's not a grid system, I'm like, okay, well, I've got a mining town that's 1,000 years old. Well, the mine was here, the mining town was here, and then, well, the rich guy that owned the mine or was the lord overseeing the mine, well, he built his house over here. So this is where all the rich people live because that's like the main ancient hub of the starting elite, basically.
Well, let me explain something to you, Nate. In Griffin Gaff, because of last session, there's now a bad section of town in Ted's campaign. And because of my family session, there is now a noble family of shifters living there. So we just kind of throw stuff out as we go, and we have no idea where it is in correlation to anything else.
Being that I'm not in one of the games and I'm only a PC in the other one, that's one of the reasons why I picked Faraway Land. That's still on the same continent, but not...
you didn't want a third shifting...
No, I really didn't... like Dark City...
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The action going on.
This constant evolving thing of Play-Doh.
Yeah, so I decided that... And you can tell from what I've described as how I build cities that I want to be able to take it as like my idea of how I construct cities.
And the real the thing to take away from this is that clearly the players are not affected by either of these two styles.
No.
We're running 3, 4, 5 different games if you count your online stuff kind of out of Griffin Gaff, and no one's saying, well, I'm missing this or I'm missing that or this is different or that's different. It's meaningless.
Here's the truth of the matter is most of the work you will do as a DM, no one will ever care about or appreciate.
Exactly.
When it comes, especially when it comes to world, like you may do something that's cool, but like that mundane stuff, which is going to take a lot of the time, and effort, no one's going to notice and appreciate it. So we don't really care if we have a map. It's enough to know these things are in the town.
Every time something happens, I make some kind of notation. It was like before. It's like, oh, are there nobles there? Well, of course there are. And
don't be ridiculous. Of course there are nobles. So what are you guys doing again?
So it's like the more they interacted with the noble plot line that I'd put out for the last session, I'm putting more stuff up. It's like, oh well, I gotta come up with a name. I forgot to do that part. Oh, let's get that figured out real quick. And
one of the things you might have, I don't know if you made a note or not, but you might need to, is you got to make up the bakery now where they make the really good bread, because Scott keeps stopping by there. And that's the other fun thing. Let your players decide. Let them tell you, oh, well, I like the cafe, right off the docks. Maybe you didn't have one, but you do now. Why not? What does it hurt?
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever your players decide is important to them, if you can put it in there, they're going to feel that they're a part of your world, because that simple suggestion that they had that is essentially meaningless to the overarching, ness of the city. It's like, Can I put a baker in? Yeah, sure. There you go. You got Brand's breads.
Nate just built the Institute of Magic and High Sorcery, and this elaborate history for it. Yet Scott doesn't care because he has the baker he goes to every Tuesday and makes really good bread.
Yep. Yeah, that can easily happen. And you know what? Let's say I had the mayor and he was like really integral, and that player suggested the mayor. Well, my other NPC could have just corrected and been like, "Oh, that's the mayor's assistant." Remember?
Right.
Still saying yes, but not saying yes exactly.
Or you could just as easily do what you did and made just shifted the focus from the mayor to that other character.
Right.
If your players don't know, what's the difference?
Yeah. And first time meetings are a really good time to throw everything up in the air and see where it lands.
Yeah, I really feel like anytime and the more often you can incorporate things into the game that players offhandedly suggest, it's better. And then if you bring them back up, then that little piece of minutia will mean more to them than your most elaborate campaign story arc that you came up with, more than likely. And that's where the really great stuff's going to come from, is just building those little pieces together. And then so now, like, all of a sudden, Scott likes to go to this bakery. Or at least his character likes to go to this bakery that he made up. And then, you offhandedly mentioned the owner, the NPC, and he's like, oh, I can totally see him being like, wanting to stop and talk to him now. And when he gets his bread to go torture the prisoners with, or whatever.
Entice the prisoners? He totally was enticing.
Well, that's true. He didn't actually do any of the torturing.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? Do you think we got this question mapped out?
I think so. So, I don't know. Hopefully we helped you out, William.
Yeah.
Let us know down in the comments. Like, subscribe, share. If you guys feel the same or differently, again, the comments is a great place to put that information.
You can check us out on nerdarchy.com.
You can also join the conversation on Reddit.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.